to the Sun Solar Panel at Phoenix Sun Show. I'm Tim Tompkins.
I'm Greg Esposito. Ahoy, hoy.
And I'm Dave King. How y'all doing?
Today on the show, we are going to have some playoff talk and talk about how early exits by some major teams might actually impact the Suns this offseason. Suns combo guard options in free agency or through the trade heading into the offseason. A Q&A with fans and ballers, including a lot of free agency, salary cap, trades, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, we will hit the rumor mill. So, guys, what do you think about the two exits, both from the Raptors as well as from the Bucks?
Better chances for the Suns to get one of their better guys on their team next year. That's what I thought.
Yeah, I assume the same kind of thing, Dave. But I don't know who are we talking. Are we talking Fred VanVleet, because that's going to require them to spend money? I take him off the list. I just don't see them spending the kind of money that it would take to get VanVleet, which I want them to, but I don't see it happening. And then, I get it. Everybody, and we'll talk about this more later. I know we will, but everybody's talking, how do you get Giannis here? And I'm not going to fall into this hype.
Are you already going to crap all over a big segment of our show?
No, we will talk about it, and I will explain my feeling, but I'm just, guess what? Espo's pessimistic. Who would have guessed?
No.
That's how I feel right now when it comes to this. So, but yeah, I mean, I'm in the minority. I felt bad for Eric Bledsoe when the Bucks lost, because he's gonna take a large amount of the blame in this, and he's likely. I mean, we've already seen rumors he's one of the odd men out in Milwaukee. Likely they're looking to deal him. So I felt bad for a guy that I liked in Phoenix. I know most didn't like him here, but that was one of my thoughts as well.
Eric Bledsoe might be one of the most gettable guys that the Suns could add next year.
God, I didn't say I want him back in Phoenix. We know he doesn't want to be here. I'm just simply saying I felt for him because he's going to have to uproot.
But what would happen if he does the opposite tweet? He literally takes a picture of himself at a salon in Phoenix and tweets, "I do want to be here," with a big smile and a check in his hand.
And then he says, "I just meant the salon, not actually the team."
it's Bledsoe's dues. So I do want to be here.
I want to talk about the Raptors just a little bit. And obviously this Sun show, and we'll talk plenty about the Suns. But Pascal Siakam getting a lot of heat right now. You guys watched Game 7, obviously. He played like trash. He certainly wasn't good. He was not the player he was all season. Apart from having offensive trouble getting baskets, there were just a ton of turnovers and those sorts of things. And he's been getting a lot of flack online by Raptors fans. Do you guys think that's warranted?
Well, I think it's warranted. I mean, of course, anytime one of your best players underperforms in the playoffs, it's warranted. Does that mean he's a lifetime underperformer in the playoffs? Absolutely not. The dude is still only, 22, 23, somewhere around there. He's pretty young. He has never been the guy before they need in scoring. Him and Fred VanVleet have basically each gone up a rung or two on their team's need you to score list, because Kyle Lowry kind of got old this year. Kyle had some really good games, but he also had some dud games, and he's getting a little long in the tooth. And of course, they lost Kawhi. So when all of a sudden your 1 and 2 scorers are Fred VanVleet and Pascal Siakam, they suddenly got a lot more attention. In a 7-game series, you can take away some of the things they're good at. Fred cannot get to the cup, and so he's got to juke and get his jumpers other ways. And Pascal Siakam can only generally get to the cup, and he was getting stopped there too because he didn't have enough counter moves. So that doesn't mean they won't get better for next year. They're both relatively young. Fred is 25, 26, and Pascal is younger than that. So they've got a chance to get better for next year. Do they need another big time player to make the finals? Probably. I mean, it's pretty unlikely for a team without any real MVP level talent to win the finals in today's NBA. But heck, they won 7 games in round 2, almost got to the conference finals. That's better than any pre-Kawhi Lowry teams. So they're still doing well. I think they're fine. And Pascal does deserve the criticism he's getting right now, just the same way he deserves the praise that he'll get in the future.
What do you think of that last play with Fred VanVleet? Obviously dribbling the ball out, not passing it. Do you think specifically, though, that the way that series ended is going to be beneficial for a team like the Suns? Did he hurt his value a little bit with the way that it all ended?
No, I don't think Fred hurt his value necessarily, but I think what this entire postseason did when it comes to the Raptors is put them in that situation where they realize they're kind of that couch cushion team, right? They're in between. They're in that crevice. That their older guys probably aren't good enough to help them stay at the top of the league, and their younger guys aren't quite where they need them to be to carry them. So my guess is Toronto goes into some sort of rebuild. And maybe not to the point where they tear it down to the studs, but I think you're not going to see the Serge Ibakas of the world back on this roster, and they may decide, you know what, we want to build around Pascal, and maybe Fred VanVleet isn't the guy that we want in the long term. I don't think it hurt his value around the league, though. I mean, one shot like that in a series that he played his ass off, and I don't think it changes that value that much around the league.
Everybody that's watching right now on the YouTube, and by the way, if you're watching on YouTube, this is absolutely available as a podcast. So wherever you listen to podcasts, go ahead and subscribe there. But in the background, Dave has a poster that I've never seen before. It's got Ricky Rubio, Mikal Bridges, Devin Booker, all the Suns play. Well, most of the Suns players, 9 of them. Where did you get that from?
Craig Hamill. He is a huge Suns fan on Twitter, and I've met. He also comes out. He's oh God, I hope I'm not getting this wrong, Craig. It's Scotland. I'm pretty sure you're from. And he comes out every year to see a handful of Suns games, and we see each other at the games. He's a huge fan, and he actually designed last year's Brightside Night T-shirts that we gave away to all the folks that came to the game as well. And so Craig Hamill is an awesome artist, and he designed this, and I ordered the canvas version that you can get that on T-shirts, on hats, on socks, whatever you want. That is a really cool thing.
Have you seen his jersey, his History of Suns jerseys image that he just came out with not too long ago? It's really cool if you haven't.
Yeah,
highly recommend checking it out. I want to get that one on a coffee mug because it's all the jerseys and it kind of goes around the mug. It's pretty sharp. So Craig, one of my favorite artists out there, and a pretty damn funny Twitter follow as well.
And he's a good follower too.
Yeah, well, that's true.
Giannis just met with Bucks ownership, talking about the future of the franchise. If you have been online anywhere, especially the Suns Reddit, Suns Twitter, all you do is see photoshopped video or pictures of Giannis in a Suns jersey. Seemingly unlikely, but let's talk about it.
Hey, you can Photoshop anybody into a Suns jersey. I mean, that's the beauty of the internet, right? The problem here is, for me, it's going to be cost prohibitive unless you get a guarantee that Giannis is going to stay. This isn't the Kawhi Leonard situation where Toronto had an older team that had the ability to flip that switch with one great player and win a championship. This is a Suns team that hasn't been to the playoffs in 10 years. They've got a majority of their roster has never experienced the playoffs. So 1 year of Giannis, I don't think takes you to the top of the mountain, especially in a tough West. So are you willing to gamble what it would take, especially if I've seen some people say, well, you give him Kelly Oubre, you give him DeAndre Ayton, maybe Cam Johnson and the 10th pick. And I'm like, yeah, that all sounds great. And I'm sure the Bucks would love that package for Giannis. But if you're getting absolutely no guarantee that he's beyond the 2021 season, you're insane to give that up, because you're basically, if Giannis walks, putting Devin Booker back in the situation where he was a few years ago, where he has no supporting cast. And then that likely at this stage makes Devin Booker go, I'm done with this, because I don't want to take a step back. So unless you're getting some guarantee, I don't even consider including DeAndre Ayton in this. If you can get the Bucks to go for Kelly Oubre, another piece like a Cam Johnson and 10, sure, pull the trigger, because Kelly's likely going to walk away. You don't need another young guy with the 10th pick, and whatever other filler you throw in, you live with, because you're getting one of the best guys on the planet. And you say, if this is a 1-year thing, at least we proved we're willing to go after a guy. But without a guarantee, I'm not going any more than that to try to get Giannis in Phoenix.
So Giannis can accept a new contract, an extension right now, a max. He can with the team that he's with. I have not looked at the CBA rules lately, so I don't know if a team he's traded to gets the same rights to re-sign him as the team he started with. There's some weird rules on supermaxes, but that might only be first supermax versus second. I don't 100% know, but he is eligible to agree to a max extension this offseason with the Bucks. If he could agree to that, and he did a verbal agreement to that, I would go ahead. Obviously, I would trade Ayton. I would trade Mikal. I would trade anybody to pair him with Booker and see what happens over 6 years. But you're right, Espo. I would not give up DA and Mikal or anything like that for a probable 1-year rental, because he's only gotten to, he hasn't gotten all the way to the finals. Now, if this was a 1 year of Kawhi, hell, every team in the league should be fighting for 1 year of Kawhi. I mean, Kawhi is on track to potentially be finals MVP for his third team and win a championship with his third team. And the dude is not even 30 years old, I don't think yet. So it's pretty crazy that, yes, I would give up whatever to get Kawhi for a year, for sure. But getting Giannis for a year, not so much.
I do wonder, why if Giannis can go somewhere, right? If he really wants to force his way out of Milwaukee, why the hell would he pick the Suns? Nothing against Suns, great team, but why wouldn't he just choose a different franchise to go to? Like, what about the Suns would you say that's where I want to be?
He'd basically be picking the Milwaukee of the West. And I don't mean that. I've lived in both cities. I've seen both teams up close and personal. I don't mean that as an insult. It's just the simple reality that Milwaukee and Phoenix are mid-market teams when it comes to the NBA. And in the end, they have not been able to get over the hump. I mean, I know Milwaukee did with Kareem Abdul-Jabbar back in the 70s, but since then they've very much been like the Suns. They've got to conference finals. They can't get over that hump. And look, let me be very clear. If it were a guaranteed championship next year with Giannis, I'd give up anything that wasn't nailed down to the floor, right? Even if it was a 1-year rental and you got the Kawhi situation, yes, I'd give up anything for that. But without that guarantee, I just and to Tim's point, I just don't see Giannis Antetokounmpo, who could pick anywhere in the league. He could basically pick any destination he wants and likely find a way to force himself there. I don't see Phoenix being that. And I love Book. Everybody knows that. I think he's a superstar in the making, but I don't know that that's enough to have one of the best players on the planet force his way to Phoenix.
Well, definitely the Suns are not an LA Lakers. And not even, I mean, the Knicks used to think they were kind of an LA Lakers, and they're not. Boston can't even get the very best free agents in the years that they wanted to get the very best free agents. There was a couple. Dallas couldn't even get the very best people to want to play for them when they were trying for the big hits. So to say that players wouldn't pick Phoenix is fine. There's very few franchises that players force themselves to, and very few of them are outside Southern California. So it's okay. He might force himself to Miami. I would if I was him. Miami's another great place for a young guy to go that every year is going to be competitive and they're going to play over their heads. I might even force myself to Toronto if I was Giannis, because of the magic that they're playing with and the fact that they go further than they're supposed to. I would do something like one of those two, and also one of the LA teams. But you don't always get to pick who you're traded to. And I know we know that AD chose the Lakers and he got traded there, but that's almost never really the way it goes. So I really do think that if the Suns picked up Giannis, it would probably be a 1-year rental, and you cross your fingers like Toronto getting Kawhi for a 1-year rental. It turned out to be the 1-year rental they asked for, and they got it, and it was worth it for them. But Giannis isn't quite the same because he hasn't proven it already all the way through the finals. But let's just say the Bucks are like, you know what, we're going to send Giannis to Phoenix, and there's a pretty good chance that Giannis, after a year, because he's happy about it, let's just say there's a pretty good chance he would sign a max extension in a year, but he's not going to physically sign it this summer. So you've got kind of a verbal, yeah, this sounds good, and you've got a trade partner in the Bucks. What is the most you would give up in that exact scenario right now, guys?
Oh, for me, it goes back to, if I feel it's a pretty solid verbal, I would go DA, I would go Kelly Oubre, probably Cam Johnson, and that 10th pick. And I think that is more than enough for the Bucks to look at it and go, this is extreme value that we're going to get with a potential superstar, a guy in Kelly Oubre that is an extremely quality player, a young guy in Cam Johnson that has immense upside, and the 10th pick. Everybody loves a lottery pick, especially in these deals. And I may even consider going, you can have our 2021 first or 2022 first, whatever it may be, project a few years in the future, throw a couple extra firsts. You take that kind of a chance, because we've sat here for a decade and gone, well, we shouldn't go all in for this guy. And if you think you have a legitimate shot to keep him, you go all in. You mortgage the future for Giannis and Booker, because that should be a duo that gets you back into the playoffs for the next decade, that should put you in playoff contention, and should be able to get additional free agents to come to fill out that roster. So I go all in on that. And let's be honest, the Milwaukee Bucks freaking owe the Phoenix Suns fans after that coin toss, because everybody thinks that's what started whatever this curse is that Phoenix has. You owe us, Milwaukee. So suck it up and take whatever we're going to offer and enjoy it, is what I have to say to Bucks ownership and the front office.
Omar in the YouTube chat says Oubre and Rubio for the 10th pick, and the 10th pick, excuse me, for Giannis. I don't quite think that's enough. I would say
if they
DA,
take it, sure.
Yeah, right. DA plus future first and future pick swaps.
Yeah, I forgot the pick swap option as well. That's always
that's only if you get a really strong verbal.
Yeah, but you know who didn't forget those pick swaps? The Houston Rockets and OKC. You guys taking a look at that trade for Russell Westbrook recently? I saw it again this morning, and like, it's through 2026. It's first rounds plus pick swaps through 2026.
Yeah,
Houston's in deep, even though they made it past. They barely made it past Chris Paul and the Thunder, and now I mean, you look at Russ and James, and they're 31 years old each. They're in deep.
Yeah, and
brutal. I'd rather be the Suns right now than the Rockets, honestly.
Has the polish come off a GM faster than Daryl Morey? Right? Wasn't he supposed to be a genius about 3.5 years ago?
All it took is one tweet for him the polish to come off.
Well, even without that tweet, he's proven to be more mad scientist than mad genius. He's just experimenting, and he obviously keeps taking steps backwards somehow. And then Mike D'Antoni, look, Steve Nash is more Steve Nash should basically be getting part of Mike D'Antoni's salary. Let's just say it that way for all these stops. And I think he's about to be on his next one. I think he winds up in Indiana as the head coach there. After the Rockets decided it's time to part ways. I think Morey and D'Antoni are out. And Tim, I think you're right. I think I'd rather have the Suns' future than what Houston's staring at, because they're staring at the abyss right now.
I mean, I'd 100% want the Suns' future over Houston's future. It's not even a thing.
Well, heck, and then OKC, I mean, even is sitting prettier than Houston, and I mean,
OKC is sitting; they're sitting just fine.
Yeah, I mean,
well, actually, you know what? Let's talk about OKC for a sec. Yes, they're sitting just fine for sure, but they're going to have to go all in on something, one way or another. They're going to have to either retrade those picks to stay relevant, or they're going to have to start over. And we know firsthand that starting over, and a lot of teams know starting over means you're going to have to wait out those picks to be able to actually get back to the top. So OKC, I mean, while they're doing just fine going forward, they're probably not a playoff team next year if they move off of Chris Paul, assuming he even plays well next year, because he's 30,000 years old now. 30,000.
How many first round picks did they get though for Paul
a ton.
George?
But the thing is, you have to actually execute those first round picks or trade them. That's all I'm saying.
Well,
so if you go into next season, look, as good as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was this year, he was kind of like a Pascal Siakam was a year or two ago, which is, it's really easy, not really easy, but it's easier to be a surprisingly good player who's not counted on to be that surprisingly good player in the crunch. So while he made some big shots, Shai, he didn't have the pressure to have made them, or he's disappointing everyone in the fan base. So if Shai becomes your top player next year and Lou Dort becomes one of your better players, and all of a sudden everyone moves up a rung or two on the pecking order, it's going to be a much tougher team for OKC next year. So I'm just saying they're either going to have to go all in by retrading those picks to get quality veterans in so they can stay playoff ready, or they're going to have to start over and take 2 or 3 years and then cross their fingers that someone works out. As much as I like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he does not look like a cornerstone that's going to take you to a conference finals at this point. He would have to make massive strides.
No, he looks like a nice piece that you would have on a roster.
A second, third, fourth starter. Like Chris Middleton. Look, this is not a shame on him. Chris Middleton level. You know, Chris Middleton is a multi-time All-Star, but cannot carry a team. He carried the Bucks for one half of that playoff series, right? But he had a tough time because he didn't have every trick in the book. Like speaking of the book, I think Devin Booker has a much more versatile offensive game for the playoffs than a lot of the guys that made it into the playoffs this year. So he might be a Chris Middleton type Shai. So we'll just see.
You're talking OKC though. There was that rumor from Scoop out there that the Suns are one of 6 teams that are interested in Chris Paul this offseason, and I don't understand that at all. Like,
well, look, in a microcosm, in the fishbowl, right, of the bubble, Chris Paul might have helped the Suns. Let's assume they actually made the playoffs, because they couldn't have done any better in the bubble than they did.
No, they
but
could
let's
not
assume
have,
they got into the playoffs and had Chris Paul, this version right now, leading them. He probably would be marginally better than Ricky Rubio, because he's just that a little bit better than Ricky Rubio. That's no shame on Ricky Rubio. So having him there, and if you could imagine in your head a little swap of Ricky for Chris, great. But I'm not convinced Chris Paul is going to be this good ever again. He's 37. Last time I looked,
I think
he's not
going
to be that good ever again.
I think you're rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. I don't think it makes it
upgraded to a padded chaise lounge over a wooden.
I don't know. I think if you look at it, I think Ricky's younger, so you feel a little bit better about having him signed another few years over over Chris Paul. The money's less, and the talent gap I don't think is that huge from what we saw Ricky be able to help the Suns team do.
Chris Paul's ability to make a big shot and look, it's okay to say Chris Paul's a little bit better in his extreme good.
I agree. I'm just saying what you would, when you look at what it would take in terms of money and potentially assets to get Chris Paul, I think taking that slightly lesser Ricky Rubio and finding other ways to spend that money or pursue other trades makes a hell of a lot more sense than trying to go get Chris Paul.
So speaking of, I think that's a great segue for our main segment today. Dave had written this really great article on Bright Side of the Sun, which really talked about some of the Sun's different combo guard options as they move into free agency. One thing I did want to point out, and I thought it was interesting, we haven't spent a ton of time talking about, Dave, but the title of your article being that the Suns need a combo guard much more than a power forward. Yep. And, I've thought a lot about this. And if you believe anything that we saw from Campaign and from Javon Carter, I'm not sure that I completely agree with the title. So I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Hey, look, it's okay to disagree. We can't all be smart people. That makes the smart ones among us look better.
Yeah. And Dave, you're not a smart one. So.
I'm not. I've never.
I'd love to talk about this conceptually.
Here's the thing. I am conceptually okay. So conceptually, my argument is that with DA and a backup big or two, like an Aaron Baines, Dario Saric, things, guys like that, you have one big and then 4 mix and match shooters out there. I really like a better. I think that's a better version of what Houston's doing. Houston went just a little too small, and then they got out rebounded like crazy by the Lakers. When everyone was like, "Oh, what if the Rockets make the conference finals and knock the Lakers out? Small ball's here to stay." Well, it's just proven that small ball can't just be small ball. You're too small. So I would say 1 big and 4 shooters out there, or 4 scorers out there, is a great way to go. And so I don't think you need a traditional big, burly, or even big power forward out there. I think Mikal and Kelly and Cam can all take turns at the power forward. You get somebody else that ilk, that size, making it a 4-man rotation to absorb injury and things like that. Great. I would add to that before I would add a 6'9", 6'10" guy. To the, like, people have said, oh, Serge Ibaka next to DA. No, actually, Serge Ibaka, instead of like the minutes DA is resting, that kind of thing, as the 1 big, that's what you're going to be doing in the future, I think. And that's my argument, is assuming DA's playing the 5, and assuming DA's playing the 5, you don't need a big guy next to him anymore. That's my argument.
Sure. So get that. Totally.
But tell me your disagreement with that.
When you think about improving a team, right? And if we were going to, for simplicity's sake, break this down into 2K scores or whatever, right? And this really reminds me a lot of what Philly did. So Philly went in and they spent a ton of money on Al Horford, right? But Philly already had all-star level Joel Embiid. So adding an Al Horford, no matter how good Al Horford is, really only raises how good your team is minimally, right? And so if you are really looking to improve your team, you go to the biggest position of weakness. And now with the players that the Suns have, I just don't feel like that's a position of weakness. So if you're going to go all in with whatever cap that they have, sure, it would make your team better, but it would make your team better marginally. Whereas that money could be better spent on a solid backup or even a starting power forward, whatever the case. And I do realize that there's a lot of statistical data out there that shows that the Suns starting lineup, playing small ball, was actually very successful, et cetera, et cetera. But I guess part of this also comes from really believing in what we saw from Javon Carter and Campaign in the limited play that we saw in the bubble. Yeah, no, definitely. Okay, so here's and Espo, sorry, but let me one more little point, and then we'll let you go. Here's the thing. You made a couple of cases on that last bit there, Tim. The first case being, you don't think really the scoring combo guard is a big role of need. And the second thing you said is,
it'd be nicer to get a power forward starting or backup power forward. I already addressed what I think of the second thing. I don't think that's a position of need. But the first thing, we don't really need a scoring combo guard. Look, I don't know about you guys, but I would love it if Cam Payne made 50% of his threes next year and made 2 or 3 of them a game and led the second unit to wins. Absolutely. Then you don't need another guy. But the Suns already have Cam Payne taken care of. They've got him. He's on a non-guaranteed deal, but it's still a deal. The Suns can keep him as long as they want to. League minimum. Javon Carter, keep him league minimum. The thing is, those guys don't create their own shots. They catch and shoot, but they don't create their own shots. Neither Cam nor Javon can jump over a piece of paper when they're driving and trying to take a shot. They just certainly they'll slip on the paper even when they're trying to jump. They just can't do it. They can't get extension in the lane, and so they're really limited offensively. I'm talking about a dude who can create his own shot next to Booker, next to Rubio when Booker's resting, and then next to Booker, he can create shots for others as well as create his own shot. So you've always got points of attack. And I made the correlation in the article back to a kind of version, although this would be a better version, but a kind of version of the Jeff Hornacek Suns where you had 2 attacking combo guards at a time on the floor, and it only really failed when they tried to go with 3. So I think having somebody who can fill in behind Rubio as a part-time playmaker and behind Booker as a part-time scorer, get your own shot scorer, not just catch and shoot scorer. I think that's a huge. Then you're never really having a drop off between Rubio and Booker and this third guy. That's my argument.
So let me try to understand, because what I struggle with is I can see where somebody can make the argument that you need a starting level power forward, right? We loved what we saw from Cam Johnson, but is it sustainable for a full season? Who knows? Great 8-game stretch won't knock that. But I don't understand. I don't see where anybody could make the argument that you need a combo guard in that starting lineup. How would it work? Are you thinking you'd slide? Obviously, Oubre is likely the odd man out if you're making a trade to acquire somebody like this. So are you going Ricky Rubio, hypothetical combo guard, Devin Booker, Mikal Bridges, DeAndre Ayton? Is that what your lineup kind of looks like? Because that's where in this I'm slightly confused. I don't know if you're talking a bench combo scoring guard
a bench combo scoring guard that would be the guy who comes in first off. Look, we all loved what Cam Payne brought to the team. Well, what did he bring to the team? He brought timely shooting, and he brought some a little bit of playmaking, and he brought some defense. I just don't count on that for 82 games. Just because it worked for 8, because his career is not a good shooter and not a great passer.
Yeah, I think for me, looking at it, I go, okay, I can have if I can upgrade and get a true starting caliber guy that can play that 4, and then it gives me a deeper bench with Cam coming off the bench and alleviating that, and where we don't have to rely on a guy who health is still a question mark when it comes to Cam Johnson. That makes sense to me, trying to pursue that. And I get, if we're just talking backup combo guard, totally on board with you, Dave. So I understand both sides of where you guys are coming from here. Part of me still is intrigued by the thought of Victor Oladipo as a Phoenix Sun. If you're going to go big,
that's your perfect guy. He fits the mold I'm talking about.
But that he's not a guy that's going to come off the bench.
He's not going to accept the role.
At that point, you have to move
traded to the Suns. You come off the bench.
You have to move Book to 3 and DeAndre.
No. You can't talk about this in terms of just 5-man lineups, man. You can't.
I get it, but you have to look at it because starting matters to guys, right? Isaiah Thomas, prime example. Dude burnt down the Suns because he wasn't a starter. All right. He destroyed a locker room because he wasn't a starter. Like, Victor Oladipo's not coming to Phoenix so he can be the sixth man off the bench. No starting caliber combo scoring guard is going to come and accept that. So you're going to have to look at that lineup and go, is Ricky Rubio the odd man out? Does he move to the bench, or does Devin Booker slide down to small forward and you plug this guy in at shooting guard? Like, that's what you're looking at, and that's a reality.
I wasn't talking about Victor anyway. Let's talk about that. I know you guys are on that page. I'm just on a different page, and it's totally okay for you guys to be wrong. It's fine. I think definitely that the Suns, if they're shooting for, like, I would love a Bogdanovich. He'll be
hold on. Hold on, Dave. Do you want to talk about trade targets first, or you want to talk about free agent targets?
You guys pick. I don't care. I was going into free agency first.
Sure. Let's do free agency. So okay. Bogdanovich, Kings.
Well, actually, let me set the stage a bit before I do, because I did that in the article and I should do it here. The Suns have two options with free agency. Their first option is to create all the money they can to make free agent offers. I'm not talking about sign and trade right now. No trades at all. How could you spend your money this offseason? The Suns could create a bunch of space, but they'd have to renounce all but 8 players. Now, granted, the 8 players are six of those 8 players are their top guys. So that's great. But you lose all your depth and all your pending free agents, like Aaron Baines. You got to let him go. Dario Saric, you got to for sure let him go. You're definitely letting go Elia Kobo, cough. You're definitely letting go some of these other guys who were basically the back half of the bench. Okay. And then you can create up to, even, let's assume the salary cap stays flat this offseason at $109 million. Suns could create almost 20 in space. 20 for the first year salary, meaning you could, on a 4-year offer, the salary could average like 22, 23. So given that number, if you wanted to go big like that for one big free agent, then what you can do is you can get 18 to 20 million available. You could potentially make an offer for Fred VanVleet. You could make an offer for Bogdanovich, or even if you want to spend like big money on short term, you could even make a big offer to Goran to bring him back for his 3rd round with the Suns. What do you think of those 3?
With Goran, I read your article. I thought it was great.
Thanks.
I guess the big question I had is, why wouldn't he just re-sign a shorter deal with the Heat?
Oh, of course he would. I'm just saying, would the Suns could make the room to make the offer? And what if Goran really, really does, in his deepest hearts, want to pick Phoenix, even though he's been, bitching about them for years? It's kind of like your first love, right? You complain about how that broke up, but if she ever wanted you back, maybe you'd be like, really? She wants you back? So it's quite possible. Would you do that? Picking one of those guys, but giving up all the other. Now, this is also assuming keeping Kelly, because Kelly's still on the team, because Kelly would only be a trade option. So we're not talking trades; we're just talking free agency.
Did Dave just ask one of his former wives to come back? Was that what we just witnessed on the solar panel?
No, but my girlfriend right now, we did go on a break during the coronavirus early stages, and now we're back. So I was definitely excited when she told me she wanted to come back.
We were on a break. Anyways,
So we don't talk about what happened on the break.
Hey, but that's the way it should be. And I think that
it was a pandemic. Nothing freaking happened on the break. But anyway,
listen, I think that's a perfect transition for Goran. Let's just call it a break, my friend, and come back.
Let's just call it a break.
Look, right. Goran loved the thought of being the next Steve Nash in Phoenix, right? And I think something about Phoenix probably still is appealing to him, even though he's had 2 stints here that ended in bizarre ways, especially the first, where he gets traded for Aaron Brooks, and they had to include a 1st-round pick with him. One of the worst trades in Suns history. But I think Goran is intriguing.
Sorry, you know a stat I saw just the other day? What's his name? Jesus Christ. Aaron Brooks. Mind blank for a second. He led the league in 3-pointers the year before the Suns traded for him. But anyway, go back to the awful trade. Go ahead.
Because everybody wants to talk Aaron Brooks on a Sunday morning in Phoenix. Anyways, I think Goran is the kind of guy that makes a lot of sense. Has already accepted being that sixth man in Miami. If he is very still has love for the Suns in his heart, I think that makes sense because you can commit short term to it. You can give that bench that stable scorer. You have a guy that if Ricky Rubio gets injured, he can slide in there and run your offense for you. I think there's a lot of intriguing things about that. Now, granted, my view is skewed. I have never lied to you guys on this show. I'm biased as hell, and I love Goran. Haven't gotten to know the guy. One of the nicest human beings
ever.
Yeah, one of the nicest human beings I ever got to spend time around while in the NBA. So that clouds my judgment right there. I'm not going to lie, but I think you look at it and he makes a lot of sense because he's going to accept the role. He's going to come in. He's going to be able to do what you want. Now Bogdanovic is very interesting as well because he's young. He's likely got a lot more potential that he can reach, and he already started to show in Sacramento what he can do. Now, is he going to be cost prohibitive? Maybe. I don't know. Is he one of those guys that feels like I need to be a starter because that's the way I'm going to prove myself in this league? There's a very good chance. So there's question marks from that standpoint. What I don't like about this scenario though is you have to gut the back half of the roster to just get enough money to have the conversations with these guys. I mean, Fred VanVleet also
marginally improves your roster, right? So I mean, when you're gutting that for a marginal improvement, really what's the point? I think out of all those guys that you mentioned, Dave, that it's Jordan Clarkson that I probably like the most, partially because of it. We're talking about a guy that has to be willing to come off the bench with what he gives to a team. So his entire career, he's basically come off the bench. He averages 15 points a game. He's a bit more of a scoring threat than a combo guard. And I think as long as you're going to go after this position, that's the kind of guy I would rather have, somebody that can fill in as that offensive threat, specifically when Devin Booker's off the court.
Actually, I totally hear you, and Jordan Clarkson would be good. And the other nice sign about a Jordan Clarkson is that he most likely doesn't get a huge contract offer in this off season. He might fit into a mid-level exception, but let's go. My favorite of those three would be actually Bogdan. He's big enough to spot time as a third guy. Him and Devin Booker can be on the wing. So he's big enough to actually play on that. He's also big and talented enough to actually, if you're a fan of Point Book, you could see him in a year or two actually starting with Devin Booker in a backcourt. Devin Booker has gotten stronger and might be have a little bit more ability to be Point Book going forward. I love the idea as long as Devin Booker doesn't get hurt. My argument always against Devin Booker playing Point Book was the wear and tear on him, and he just wasn't strong enough as a 20, 22, 21-year-old. If he's getting there and he can become like a James Harden type where he can just play the whole game regardless, absolutely you make him Point Book. And if you're a fan of that, you go for a Bogdan because he's big enough where he can slide into small forward as necessary in lineups. He could start. He could be a playmaker part-time, and he's, I think, a bigger scoring threat than Jordan Clarkson. That would be ideal. If you're going to blow a bunch of money on one guy, it would be Bogdan for me.
So you feel he's worth the cost because what are you thinking is the cost that it's going to take to get Bogdan? I'm guessing we're talking high teens in terms of
so he's a restricted free agent. However, I don't you know what, I didn't do enough research for this pod. There's some limit that the Kings cannot go over because of the way he was signed. There's something 12, about that,
right?
Yeah, but I'm not sure if that, you know what, that might have been only an extension limit, and now they don't have one in free agency, I think. Actually, I think that's probably true. They could match whatever. So if they want to keep Bogdan, great. However, he's not been happy in Sacramento, and they might be okay letting him go because he didn't want to back up Buddy Hield, and Buddy Hield has become a nightmare there, but they gave him more money, and they're stuck with him, and no one's going to trade for Buddy Hield. So, and you've got De'Aaron Fox starting at point guard. There's no future for Bogdan starting on the Kings. So it's possible it's possible that the Kings will let Bogdan go for a big enough offer, which I think would have to be in the 16, 18 million a year to start. So you'd have to be willing to make him one of your big money guys. Like instead of signing Kelly Oubre, you have re-signing Kelly Oubre. You have that second, third big money on a Bogdan type. So I would do that.
I think you're definitely rolling the dice, but you're going to have to. I mean, that's the way this team is going to get better is taking some chances. And sure, you could get marginally better by nibbling at the edges and adding Jordan Clarksons of the world and little things. But if you're going to take a giant next step, you're going to have to take a chance. And maybe Bogdan's that type of guy. I'm fine with it because I already got a Bogdan Suns jersey, so I'm good to go on that front. But he's intriguing. I know you've been in love with him for a while.
Draft picks
Dave.
We could always pull out the rookie draft night picture of him in a Suns hat. Because they made so many freaking trades, a lot of the Suns' best draft picks don't have a Suns hat on. DA and Bogdan to be about the only two, it feels like.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
it's
do
a hard one though, right? Because to your point, there's an opportunity cost and free agency as well as there's an opportunity cost in trade candidates. So for trade candidates, and I guess we should preface this by saying that the major assets that the Suns have right now is number 10 picking Kelly Oubre. Yes, we do see some YouTube chat saying why do people want to get rid of Kelly Oubre? I'm not saying that we do, just that's a definite asset. Okay, fair enough.
No, I don't. I want to keep Kelly, but if you can make your team better at a different position, you do that.
That's what all of this is all of these are, does this make your team better? And the Suns, by no stretch of the imagination, are in a point where we should be saying no to making the team better, right? Like that's not where they are in their trajectory.
Well, and every conversation has to be around the Suns being playoff eligible, playoff pushing for next year, not building for the future.
Yep. And so to an extent, right? And so Dave, because there's short term and a long term cost. You had trade candidates: Dennis Schroeder, Evan Fournier, Patty Mills, and Luke Kennard. Why did you pick them?
Yeah, again, only talking about the combo guard potential. Okay, so obviously, if you want to go for a different position, great, do that. But the theme of this week's article and this week's podcast today is, what if you were looking for that combo guard who could do a little bit of time behind Ricky and a little bit of time behind Book and be effective in either role? Okay, that's why I suggested those guys. Dennis Schroeder would be just ideal because he can create his own shot anytime he wants to, and he can pass and he can defend. The only thing is the Thunder might want to keep him, especially if they trade Chris Paul.
Would they though? Because with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, if they're going to go into a mini rebuild, he may be a guy where, okay, you deal Chris Paul and then you look and you go, we really don't need these two guys because we're not trying to win right now. I could see Schroeder being another guy that they move off of, especially if you make the right offer. If they're accumulating draft picks, and maybe you look at that, trading that like 10th pick and something to help the salaries match, and that's probably a big something. But to try to get a Schroeder, because we know Presti loves to wheel and deal. We know Presti basically gets aroused by the thought of a lottery pick. So he's intrigued just when you pick up the phone and you go, what do you think about number 10, big boy? And, Presti's like, I'm interested. All right, I'm in. Well, how do we make this work? So he's like, all right, maybe I'm intrigued. And I think Schroeder is that kind of guy that you go, okay, has enough experience where you feel like you know what you're getting, and has that ability. I'm intrigued by that. If you can actually get Sam Presti and OKC to dance,
Hey, I want to respond to GW King Sha. Trading Oubre is building for the future? ? No, see, that's not. You don't trade Oubre just to trade Oubre. You trade him to get significantly better at another spot. Otherwise, you keep Oubre. I love Kelly Oubre. I want to keep Kelly Oubre. But it's not building for the future just to trade him. It depends on what you get back. If you get back a piece the thing is with Kelly, you've got Mikal and Cam who play basically the same role. And so you're looking only if you want to improve a different role on the team. That's it. You don't trade Kelly for another guy who's going to be exactly like Kelly. You just keep Kelly. But you definitely, if you need to balance out other parts of the roster, then you do it then. That's the only reason to trade him.
Let me, on the Kelly Oubre topic, let me say this louder for the people in the back to hear. The problem with Kelly Oubre is he's a free agent after this year, and the level of money you're going to have to commit to him probably means you're moving on from a Cam Johnson or a Mikal Bridges long term, because you're going to be all in on him being one of your big three for the foreseeable future. And that's what's prohibitive to me. I just don't see them committing 18, 20, 22 million a year to Kelly Oubre when they're going to have to commit, if they believe in DeAndre Ayton, big money to him at some point. And you look at it, I don't think a core of Devin Booker, Kelly Oubre, DeAndre Ayton is winning you a title. And if that's not what you're chasing, then what the hell are we all wasting our time with this franchise if you're not going after a title? Kelly's 1 year left, and the money you're going to have to pay him is what makes him a trade option, not what he does or doesn't offer the team or his ability on the court. It's the reality of the situation in the long run.
I wrote about this a little bit in one of our Suns rank articles on brightsideofthesun.com. We're ranking all the Suns players as far as most important to the team right now, not 2 years from now and not 2 years ago, but right now. And one of the things I touched on in one of the articles this week was that this is a pretty easy offseason for this Suns team. You could run it back pretty much, and the only guys really on the free agent market are Aaron Baines and Dario Saric, pretty much. However, next summer, oh my God, next summer, not only do you have Kelly becoming a free agent, but you also have what if everyone's love for Cam Payne and Javon Carter and all that, they're probably going to be free agents next summer as well. I expect Javon is going to find himself not getting offers in free agency because he'll be a lot of guys are not going to get offers in free agency this year. But anyway, you're talking about DA and Mikal's extensions too next summer. So not only are you talking about a big summer for the team, you're talking about extensions for those guys. And the last time the Suns were pending big extensions for rookie contract players was the summer of 2014, which was just abominably scary. So I would rather just take care of not having Kelly become a free agent next summer if that's going to be a big worry.
Yeah, look, in a vacuum, you keep Kelly Oubre. There's no doubt. But when you look at it and the reality of trying to build this roster long term, that's why trade talk comes up. It's not that Kelly Oubre isn't a good player. It's not that Kelly Oubre doesn't bring energy to this team, and it's not that he didn't change the culture of this team when he arrived. It's just the reality of having to try to figure out how this puzzle works over the next handful of years.
Sure. So let me ask you guys a question. Let's go down the players. And I want to get a yes or no from both of you, starting with Greg. Does trading Kelly Oubre for Dennis Schroeder make the Suns better?
Yes.
Dave?
Yes.
Does Kelly Oubre for Evan Fournier make the Suns better?
No, because inevitably I'm accidentally going to search Fournier on Google and doesn't make it better. It makes it worse.
Don't Google Fournier.
Just don't.
Flaming Ballers. Please don't. Actually, what you Google might turn out to be our logo for Flaming Ballers, but really, no. Don't Google Fournier. And then, so does Fournier make the Suns better this coming season? No, but he might make the Suns better the year after, because Kelly could be gone from free agency. So that's the difference.
That's a fair point. All right. So Kelly Oubre for Patty Mills.
No.
Oh God, no. Patty Mills was my idea for signing another veteran to be the professional off the bench who's helped set the culture tone if you let an Aaron Baines go. You've always got to have 2 or 3 guys in that rotation playing actual rotation minutes who can, Buck Dog, you shouldn't have done that. Google Fournier, please. If Fournier in the rotation, the rotation. Patty Mills, you want a guy like that to be your professional off the bench, not your big money free agent signing, no, or your big money trade candidate. No, he's a free agent this summer, so that would be great if the Suns could add him to replace an Aaron Baines type.
Okay. Kelly Oubre for Luke Kennard.
It depends.
Again, I would say in
on
22, yes.
Man.
I'm sorry, Greg. Go ahead.
I was just going to say simply, it depends on health. If Luke Kennard's healthy, I think there's a push probably. And to Dave's point, if Oubre walks, I'd much rather have Luke Kennard in hand than no Kelly Oubre. So
let's talk about the specifics with Luke Kennard. The reason the Suns were looking at him at the trade deadline is because he is a year away from restricted free agency, which is the summer of 21. So the Pistons, in trying to save themselves from a big restricted free agency push and him wanting big money, were willing to look to deal him. And the Suns were only going to give up, because he's on a rookie deal, Suns were only going to give up guys like Elliot Kobo and Ty Jerome in that trade, not Kelly Oubre. So if your question is, would I rather have Kelly Oubre or Luke Kennard, I'd rather have Kelly Oubre, but I'd ideally rather have both.
Yeah, I agree there, Dave.
Greg, why don't you give a shout out to the Flaming Ballers and explain exactly what it is? We do have a Facebook group. Greg will explain, and while he's doing so, I'm going to put that in the chat for anybody that signs up to be a Flaming Baller.
Well, based on the chat right now, I'm not sure the Flaming Ballers are the most intelligent podcast and YouTube followers ever. We told you not to Google Fournier. There was a reason, and you all did it anyways.
Whatever you do, don't Google it.
It's like the kid that you tell, don't touch the stove, and both hands go on 2 seconds later. But anyways, I apologize, gentlemen. We do love our Flaming Ballers. And what it is basically, it's a way to support the show. You can go in on Facebook, or excuse me, on YouTube. You can click the join button and you can pay to be a member of the Flaming Ballers. Or if you're listening on Anchor as a podcast, you can click the link in the notes to the show. You can join. You get exclusive content from time to time. There will be another Espo show that I'm going to put up, a clip from another Espo show that I'm going to throw up there for you to enjoy, and then you can have discussions with us. You get Q&As that you get nowhere else, where we'll answer only Flaming Ballers questions here on the show. We call it the Flaming Ballers Sack. We'll reach in there and you answer your questions. So once you sign up, you get access to the Facebook group. You also get access, if you join on YouTube, to the specific community chats there. Highly recommend it. Would really appreciate you joining. And also, if you're a Flaming Baller, we got the shirts now. We put the link in the Facebook group and on YouTube. You can get your own Flaming Baller shirt and really confuse people as to why you're wearing a shirt that says that with a giant basketball on fire. So that's another great reason to be part of this show and support it.
So the rumor mill, we're going to talk about, a couple of rumors that are floating around right now. One thing I always think of when it comes to rumors that are flying around is who is floating these. Is it put out by an agent that wants to draw more interest in whoever his player is? So the first one, the Hawks and the Suns are considered likely to make draft day trades.
Oh, I think that makes sense.
I don't think James Jones has a lot of love for exactly that number 10 pick. Last year, he traded down from 6 to 11. He traded back into the later in the first round for Ty Jerome. He's going to pick players he really wants, and then he's going to get them wherever he is comfortable getting them. Obviously, he's okay with overdrafting guys. And so I definitely think James Jones is willing to move around in this draft for the guy they want. And the Suns are likely going to want a guy none of us are really thinking about for one reason or another. So whether that is traded or not is completely, like, he got 2 rotation players out of draft day trades last year, plus those draft picks. So I see that happening on the regular.
Especially in a year where drafting is going to be odder than ever. I mean, not traditional scouting, won't be the traditional combine. Draft is now likely sometime in November, based on the way the league's moving around the schedule. So I could see a lot of teams being willing to move out of their pick, even in the lottery, but the Suns in particular. James Jones, to Dave's point, not really a fan of high picks. He said as much in terms of wanting to potentially move off this pick. It would not shock me if the Suns trade this pick as part of a big deal or as part of a we'll move back and get a guy we like. I think all sorts of possibilities are on the table for the Suns.
Hey, Herbie asked the question, is there news regarding updated schedules and off-season dates? There is. Well, the bottom line is no one knows yet. However, the NBA draft has definitely been moved back at least a month. So it was going to be October 15. Now it's going to be at least November 15. But every week that goes by, we have more and more information on when the next season starts. It's all going to work backwards from the next season's starting date. And the NBA has come out in the past couple of days saying that they'd rather wait until they can get some fans in the stands before they start games up again. They don't want to do bubbles. They want to be in home markets with some fans in the stands. And I tell you, I talked about this last week on the pod. If that's 40%, gate receipts are 40% of their revenue. And so you're not going to just go to the bubble if you don't have to.
So
they had
Robert
to finish
Sarver's
this season.
broke, is what you're saying.
Well,
every owner is relatively broke. I mean, you can't pay players $110 million if you're only bringing in 70. So it's just, you can, but you'll take a big loss. So they'd rather just wait, and they're going to do whatever they can to wait the longest possible to still get in also their 82 game schedule, because they also make money based on the games played. So they want to be home markets and they want to be partial stands. So I want to use this opportunity to ask you guys, did you guys see the Thursday Night Football game, and that the Chiefs actually brought 17,000 fans into that stadium with a third, 1/3 capacity? Did you guys see that?
Nope.
Yeah, it's weird as hell. I'm sorry. I thought it was weirder than having no fans, because it looked like the team was having an open practice and they forgot to tell their fans. So like it was just bizarre as all
yeah
hell.
But at least you could hear fans. My big worry is are they going to start something, because they were supposed to all be wearing masks throughout, and I think most of them, every time they flipped to the crowd, they pretty much were. It's better having real fan noise than piped in fan noise for sure. And I watched some of those college football games yesterday, and actually that was weirder with absolutely no fans in the stands. So man, the NFL has a better chance to have a successful season than college teams do, because college teams also have their entire campus of students to worry about as well. Anyway, so the NBA is going to wait, but I do think they're going to figure out how to get at least a third capacity, if not half capacity, next season. And then everyone's going to be forced to wear masks during the game, which is, we're all getting used to now. It's not that big of a deal. I actually went to a movie last week to see Tenet in a theater. And it was like there was 3 people in the whole theater. That's because I went on a Thursday afternoon, so I wouldn't have to worry about it. But they had roped off or blocked off every other pair of chairs. So, and nobody's sitting directly in front or behind. So actually, I do think that is the path to the next stage of reopening, is 25 to 30 to 40% capacity with forced spacing.
So look, this is real simple. The NBA has always wanted to experiment with starting their season on Christmas. They're going to do it this year. That's what's going to happen here. They're going to do it. They're going to get in their 82. They're going to have limited. They're going to change the schedule so there's limited travel. I wouldn't be shocked if you play heavier in your division, so you're traveling much closer, or if they shift division so they get it as most geographically tight knit as they can to limit travel, and we'll see that. I think that's what's going to happen. But that answers that question. But Tim, what other rumors did you have? I know we're running tight on time, but what other rumors did you have that we wanted to get to before we get out of here?
Sure. Let's go to one more before we get out of here. And again, thank you everybody so much who gives us an hour of your time every week. We all really appreciate you. This one I thought was really interesting. The Hawks, Knicks, and Suns, of course, expected to pursue Davis Bertans. I've actually heard a lot of chatter about this.
Yeah, that's interesting. So Davis Bertans, if you're looking for a wing shooter who doesn't do much else because he almost never passes, almost never
A
rebounds.
little bit more of a power forward, though, correct?
Well, just because he's tall. I kind of see him as more a Cam Johnson. If you like Cam Johnson is actually a better rebounder already. At least Bubble Cam is more better rebounder than Davis. Davis is really going to be your stretchy shooter guy who's tall enough to spot at power forward, but he doesn't rebound well. And he's not going to be a playmaker. If you don't like how Kelly Oubre passes, you're not going to like how Davis Bertans passes. So, but he can shoot the heck out of the ball, and he can draw defenses way out, 30 feet out from the rim, and so you've got tons of spacing there. So if you want a non-passer, non-rebounder, but a great shooter, then Davis is going to be worth it, and he's going to be one of those. The Suns will have to gut the team. When I say gut the team, I still mean keep your top 6 players and a couple of other guys, top 8. There's going to be 8 guys they can keep, and they can create up to 20 million in cap space. You'd have to give most of that to Davis.
Davis Bertans is what we're going to hear on the show if we get the guy. Davis Bertans. No,
Davis.
Look,
Bertans.
I'm always intrigued by shooting. I mean, I think it's cliche now, but Cotton Fitzsimmons used to say you can never have enough shooting. Well, you can never have enough shooting still, more so in today's game. So any guy that can shoot the 3 like Davis Bertans is good in my book, but it comes down to the cost again. And you look at it and you go, is this guy going to help you take that next step?
You know what?
I don't know. I'm not sure that he's the guy that puts you solidly in the playoff picture.
No, I don't think he's no. He's definitely role player. So overpaying for a role player is tough, and that's the big deal. He is great on his rookie contract right now. Is he so great when he's making 20% of your cap? Maybe not. Hey, there was an earlier comment just recently here. John Humble said, let's get a veteran center. And a commenter earlier, one of our ballers earlier mentioned, why not go get Boban? Look, man, that would be the funnest offseason ever. And I would so look forward to getting back into media time if we could sign Boban Marjanovic to be replacing Aaron Baines as DA's backup. That would be so freaking fun. He's just a wonderful human being. So yeah, definitely let's bring this guy Boban in but he won't cost that much. He's to the point in his career that he'll be one of those guys who gets to pick his team within that mid-level exception.
Boban would be fun. I don't think, again.
Who wrote "Don't Google Dave King sex tape"?
You
should definitely Google it.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% gonna Google it. So thank you everybody so much for joining us, especially to all of the Flaming Ballers out there and everybody that supports the show through the podcast version. Especially, we really love and appreciate you guys as well. So for Greg, Dave, and myself, thank you so much, and we will see you again next Saturday live here on the Sun Solar Panel Podcast.